So there was a big debate about voting laws in Georgia. But what was that conversation really about? Let's talk about it.
When voting in person in the state of Georgia, you must have a photo ID. It only makes sense for the same standard to apply to absentee ballots as well.
It's anti-democratic. It's un-American. They're trying to make it harder for people to vote.
You can't provide water for people about to vote. Give me a break.
Point one. So anybody requesting an absentee ballot would be required to provide a driver's license number rather than just a signature. So the purpose of this is to make sure that we positively identify whoever it is requesting this ballot. Why is that a problem? Because according to the people who were against these voter ID laws, the problem is that minorities and elderly people and poor people don't have IDs. Okay, so let's really get down to what this really is all about. What it does is it just makes it harder for you to cheat in an election, right? The opposing side says that it makes it more difficult to vote. But think about this for a second. Of all the other things that you have to have ID for in your life, to get on an airplane, to buy a train ticket, to go in a lot of different venues, to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, all these different things that you need to prove who you are or how old you are in order for you to do that. You need an ID to function in society. So it would seem to me that what this is really about is one side saying that people should be able to vote whether or not they can actually function in society. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting for me. You would think that the vote in and of itself was about functioning in society, interacting with society. And the people who would be voting are people who actually function in society and interact in society. If they're not contributing to society, functioning within society, then what are they voting for? But that's beside the point, really, if you think about it. It goes even deeper than that. Because what you have is a group of individuals who have completely bypassed the fact that the biggest problem here is, in that case, in that scenario, is that people don't have an ID. So rather than trying to keep it to where they could vote or make it easier for them to vote without an ID, it would seem to me like you would want to fix the problem. You would look for the root cause, right? What is the problem? They don't have ID. Full stop. Full stop right there. They don't have ID. Why don't they have ID? If this is true, why don't they have ID? And isn't that the problem that we should be focusing on solving? If it's too difficult for them to get an ID, according to you, why wouldn't you focus on your efforts on making it easier for them to get an ID? Then you kill two birds with one stone, right? Unless, of course, you think it's okay for people to not have what they need or access to what they need to fully function in society. It's bigger than voting. If you believe that it's that difficult for them to get an ID in the first place, I think that's a lie. It's not true. There's no evidence to support that. But if I give you that and we go forward with that assumption, you're still out of order. You're still completely neglecting the core problem. Point number two. Opponents say that the change makes it a crime to provide food and water to people who are waiting to vote. Now, first of all, I should note there's a difference between someone waiting in line or someone who is in the area. But that's not even the biggest point. The biggest point is, as an adult, someone who is going to vote, uh, when you make sure you have what you need to go wherever you're going to go, not just to the polls, you're going to the movies, you're going anywhere you're going, you want to make sure that you have what you need along the way, right? Because if not, then that means you're depending upon someone else to provide that for you. But back to the point about these long lines that people are waiting in where they need food and water, it would seem to me that you'd want to speed up the process then. So there was no long line. If you talk about people waiting in line for hours to vote, for hours, and they need food and they need water, why? What is the core problem? They're waiting in line for hours to vote. It would seem to me like your goal would be to facilitate the process, speed things up, so that voting doesn't take so long. Why are they not talking about that? Which brings me to my third point. Point number 3, this is my third, final, and I think the most important point about this entire debate. Listen to what people say when they talk about this. Listen to the politicians and the words that come out of their mouth, and you will see two distinct ideologies in regards to functioning adults. That's what we're talking about. Voters are supposed to be functioning adults who contribute to society. But on one hand, you hear a conversation about personal responsibility. And on the other hand, you hear a conversation about the complete lack of personal responsibility. Listen to all of the Democrat politicians who oppose the voter ID laws. Not just the politicians, but the advocates, even the citizenry who oppose voter ID laws. Listen to how they speak, and you'll soon discover that all of them speak from a place of lack of personal responsibility. It's all about doing everything for people. It's as if you're dealing with a bunch of children. They talk about voters like minors, like kids, like they're not capable of making sure they have some water to drink, like they're not capable of feeding themselves, like they're not capable of going down and getting an ID. What are we really talking about here? Are we talking about fully functioning adults who contribute to society, who understand the responsibilities of the individual within a society and therefore cast their vote? Or are we talking about a bunch of irresponsible children who have no business casting a vote about how the government of this country should be run? There's a clear distinction there. There should be no confusion in anyone's mind. If you have a problem with a voter ID law, you have a problem with self-responsibility and personal accountability. Those are my thoughts. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments section below. Take care, guys. Peace.